Welcome everybody, it's Hot Rada here, and I'm gonna hit you today with a video explaining or theorizing how teams could be choosing their civilizations in Game 1 of the 843 MPT tournament. We're gonna be starting the tournament on February 13th, a Monday, so please make sure everybody to turn into the stream that day. Now without further ado, in this video I'm going to showcase exactly how the CIVs are being selected, and then explain how the resource situation that is very special in this tournament affects civilization priority, or at least how it's going to do that in my opinion. For game number 1, which we're going to be looking at today, every player is going to be starting with iron in their capital radius. So of course they're still going to have to research the ironworking tech, but they are going to be guaranteed to have access to iron. So what is my theory of how this affects the meta? In my opinion, the top 6 civilizations that I'm going to be expecting to be picked in all 3 of these Iron Cap games are pretty much set. Now let me explain. There are 3 civilizations in MPT that have Iron Swordsman unique units, those being Persia, Celts, and Rome. These I do always expect to be the first 3 picks, with one minor concession there. Now, out of all these 3, in my opinion, Persia is likely to be the best civ, because they start with bronze working, so they are always going to be the first of these 3 to research ironworking, which is going to be so crucial to hook that res early on, or at least get a warrior onto that mountain or hill in order to secure that iron for yourselves at some point during the game. So with that being said, in this example for game number 1, Team Antiquity will have the first pick, so I'm going to be slotting in Persia right there, just because I believe they're going to be the strongest civ. Team Cheese following this up now has the choice between, well, all the other civs, but really between Celts and Rome in my opinion. And this is really a toss-up, whether you value the industrious trade of Rome or the agricultural trade of the Celts is a pretty big factor. Well, also the militaristic versus the religious trade is a valid discussion to have. Personally, I feel like, disregarding which players are actually picking here, most people might favor the Celts here traditionally in an MPT setting, especially when score could be so important. Having the agricultural trade can be a big advantage. So most of the time I do expect the Celts to come in second, which then leaves Team Halu with 2 back-to-back picks. Now, as I already said, I do expect Rome to be one of those, simply because those are the 3 Swordsman unique unit civs. But now we're to the 4th civilization, and I also believe that this one is pretty much set in stone. In my opinion, the 4th best civilization is going to be the Mayans. So that, in this example, is going to be the 4th pick, and rounding out the team composition for Team Halu. Now, why do I believe that to be the case? I think that having iron guaranteed in your capital is a huge bonus to the Mayans. They are industrious, so they're able to hook that really quickly if they need to. And they also have the advantage that they are oftentimes very weak on defense, especially early on. But, of course, that being due to not having an archer. But having iron in your cap, I think, might make that effect much less dangerous to you as the Mayans player. So if you always have iron accessible, then you might pick the Mayans quite high, well, quite early on in the draft, because you aren't as vulnerable as you would be in many other MPT games, even if you're up against civs such as the Persians or the Celts. So that is who I believe to be the clear top 4 on these Iron Capital maps. And I do even think that there's an argument for Mayans to be picked earlier than this in the draft. Maybe if the first or second choice teams feel like taking away the Mayans, they could do that. However, then that would mean giving up one of these 3 high-tier civs, and I'm not sure anybody's actually going to be willing to make that decision. Now here's where it gets interesting in my opinion. We've got 2 remaining civ picks here. Team Cheese is up next with the 5th pick of the draft in this example. And for them, the choice is really tough. Now, in my opinion, there's 6 options that are realistically even fathomable to be picked in such a situation. Zulu, of course, is still Zulu in this tournament. If you're able to deny one of these rests, it'll be incredibly difficult for the enemy to get it back, especially since they're going to be picking with the knowledge of having iron. If you were somehow able to deny that iron, that would be incredibly powerful. Now, that is not a guarantee since you don't even start with bronze working, so it'll be a tough time getting there and actually guessing correctly which tile you need to block. But hey, there's always an option. The other realistic options are the Aztecs and Incans, which are high priority civs in most MPT tournaments. I think the Aztecs might have an issue here because everybody having iron is going to mean that quite early on in the game, people are going to be having access to defensive units, even to spearmen as well, because everybody's going to be researching bronze working if they don't already have it. So maybe the Aztecs are a bit weaker here than in regular MPTs. But what of course benefits both the Aztecs and the Incans is the fact that you only have one teammate and 4 enemies on the map, so the likelihood of finding an enemy nearby you early in the game is quite high actually. So that might play into the hands of these Russia civs and even into the hands of the Zulu to some extent as well. Now I do believe that Incans are going to be a bit better than the Aztecs. The agricultural trade I do value higher in this kind of setting than the Jaguar warrior, just because, as I already said, I believe people to be able to defend a little bit more easily having that iron available so early in the game. Now, what are the other options? You could also pick Iroquois if you just believe that the agricultural trade is so strong, and if you already got the Celts locked in here in the second slot, you're able to form a powerful double agricultural duo and play for score in that regard. So that's something to consider already when picking that second civ, is whether or not you're planning to go for a pick such as Iroquois or Incans in this 5th spot. Because all the other teams, of course, only are able to get one agricultural civ at best in this hypothetical scenario right here. Now, the only other picks that I want to throw out here as a kind of half-serious suggestion are Babylon and the Greeks. Both because they start with bronze working, so getting that iron working and early resource control is possible, and they have really important and powerful unique units at, well, if you're ever able to get that on enemy iron, they're probably not getting that back for half the game at least. The Enkidu warrior and the hoplite is exceptional at denying those resources, but also this might come down to who survives the longest oftentimes, and Zulu and Greece, oh excuse me, we're not talking about Sumeria. Sumeria, Greece and Babylon, excuse me, I forgot one of these civs there. Sumeria, Greece and Babylon all start with that bronze working, and they're all able to deny iron exceptionally well and defend themselves exceptionally well, which I believe to be important skills in this type of tournament. So that is the entirety of the civs that I believe to be feasibly picked in this tournament. Now, I do believe of all the ones that I mentioned, the Zulu and the Incans are going to be the typical picks that people are going to be going for. I'm going to be slotting in the Incans right here, just because I believe they are the highest tier remaining civ, and then that would leave Team Antiquity in this case with the last pick of the draft, likely going for the Zulu. But again, this is just an example based on nothing else than my theorizing and strategizing that I've done in my head. So please feel free to share your comments in the YouTube comment section or the Twitch chat during the stream. And I'm excited to kick this tournament off very soon for you guys to watch. So don't miss out, Monday the 13th. Check my stream announcement, and I'll see you there on Twitch.